What should you be thinking about daily fantasy football for the Chiefs-Ravens AFC Championship game? And what do we think of Jim Harbaugh being hired by the Chargers? It's time to break that all down on today's show as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm one of your co-hosts, Vinnie Iyer. And when I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Hey, I'm Michelle Magdziuk, researcher at NFL Network and fantasy analyst for NFL.com.
Together, we're Locked On Fantasy Football, your destination to become the smartest fantasy football player in your league, whether you're playing seasonal or DFS year-round. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your fantasy football team every day. And Michelle, we have an exciting show today. We not only have a breakdown of the Chiefs and the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, but a big coaching hire went down. We broke down a few of the newer hires that had come in first earlier in the week with the Patriots and Raiders and Titans. But now we get the big one. The Chargers get Jim Harbaugh, and we know that's exciting. So we'll get into that and just look at the Chiefs-Ravens game from a variety of perspectives. We'll look at the betting lines, the over-under. We'll look at the PrizePicks picks that you want to look at for the more looks here this week, as well as our FanDuel lineups. We'll each reveal a single game slate for this in our final segment. So a lot to get to before we do that. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for first deposit match up to $100. All right, Michelle, let's dive in. Jim Harbaugh, let's get this news first and our reaction to this. What did you think first when you heard Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers?
I like it. I think I like this option more than anything else because of Justin Herbert, right? I think Justin Herbert being there, he's entering his fifth season now. I think that's a perfect match between these two. You're bringing in a better coach with a better quarterback and trying to, get Justin Herbert back on track and this offense back on track as well. So I really like the fit. My biggest question, though, going into this offseason with the Chargers, now they have their coach, and I think it's a really good hire. What do they do with all these skill position players, right? Because Austin Eckler, he's a free agent. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen have the largest cap hits this year. $32 million cap hit for Mike Williams, and then $34 million for Keenan Allen. And both of those guys could be cut and saved a ton of money. Keenan Allen's turning 32 years old, but I feel like Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen just have such an amazing connection. It would be hard to move on from him. But Mike Williams can't stay healthy, and they'd save $20 million cutting him as well. But then how do you rebuild up this offense? That's a huge question mark as well. Where do you see this offense looking? Will Eckler and Mike Williams be here this year?
Yeah, I think they might look at traditionally getting the running game back on track to more of an approach where you have the rusher being first, right? And this is important for Jim Harbaugh's offenses wherever you go. The offensive line, the power running game, this is very important to what Jim Harbaugh is doing, whether it was at Michigan or the 49ers. So you think they would maybe go in a different direction than Austin Eckler. And look, he's older. We know that. He's slowed down a little bit. He's taken a lot of hits. He's had a lot of soft tissue injuries. So in free agency, it would seem to be a smarter move to move on, right? And Mike Williams, you make a great point. He's always hurt. He's very expensive. I think Keenan Allen is more retainable here, right? He's just been pretty valuable all over the field when healthy. That's been the big thing with him. Josh Palmer also looks promising. We'll see about Quentin Johnston if he can have a better role in this offense going forward, because it was pretty bad as a rookie first rounder last year. So we'll see about Palmer. We'll see what they do with Gerald Everett. He's a free agent as well. So I think you'll see some big changes here. And it's funny, all these other teams, like, they have some weapons, right? The Falcons and Commanders, the Titans, even to some degree, the Panthers, right? But this is the team that has the quarterback in place, but all the things around him, and that makes sense, right? They paid the quarterback a ton of money. He's making $52.5 million per season, so that's going to hamper you in all these spots, and you're going to have to kind of adjust. So I think they need to address their offensive line a little bit more. I think you might see a remixed backfield. I think you'll see a different direction at tight end. So there's all kinds of things the Chargers can do here, but it might be a little bit of a down year right at first, but then I think you look at it, the track record, it's going to go up. And I think when you look at the work that he's done with quarterbacks, Jim Harbaugh, this is going to be good for Justin Herbert in the end. I think this is what they needed to restore him to an elite performer sooner rather than later, and that's going to add up to fantasy production.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the way they pay Justin Herbert, you needed to bring in a coach like Harbaugh that can just help him reach his full potential more consistently, right? We see games where he's absolutely amazing, but he needs to be more consistent with it. And a big part of that will be the weapons they bring in or keep or retain. So will be a fun offseason there with the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm just excited because it brings another great coach. You have Andy Reid already in this division, Sean Payton. We'll see if he can find his answer other than Russell Wilson. But yeah, some big name coaches in this division. Then you have Antonio Pierce. So everyone's trying to catch the Chiefs, trying to get more competitive there. And I think Jim Harbaugh very well could turn this into a situation we had with the 49ers and Seahawks. And that's the ideal scenario, right? Where the Chargers and Chiefs with Herbert and Mahomes are competing. They're having some high-scoring games. That's great for fantasy, great for reality, all that good stuff. So looking forward to that. Now, speaking of the Chiefs, they still rule the roost easily in the weak AFC West. They're taking on the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. Now, we'll get into the specific players and all that, but let's look at the lines here. The Ravens are 3.5-point favorites, a little bit more than the traditional home favorites, getting a half a point kicker there. And the over-under set at 44.5. I think this is about right. But what are you feeling here, Michelle? Is it going to be a little bit of high scoring of a game? Are the Chiefs and Ravens going to stay right with each other?
I do think it's going to be a low scoring game. So right off the bat here, I'm taking the under for 44.5 points. I think this is my final prediction, 22-17. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I won't say who I think wins yet. This is the thing. Patrick Mahomes and that offense, the whole Chiefs offense, looked really good against the Bills last week. But I think the Bills were just so incredibly injured that I don't think they're playing against an actual good defense, right? This Ravens defense is legit. And I think this is going to be low scoring. It all comes down to what can Lamar Jackson do, because the Chiefs defense is very legit as well, right? If Lamar Jackson has a day like he did in the second half of the Texans game, they're going to win. He really performed well in that second half. But Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and I'm having a really hard time going against him. But I am going to say Ravens -3.5. I think it's their year. I think they're the better team, and I do think Mahomes is a better quarterback, but I think the defense will make up for it.
Yeah, it's a good call there. When you look at it, I do like it going over here. And my reasoning is you might have a lot of movement on the ball, right? Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. You can also run on both these teams. They give up 4.5 yards per carry. So that could keep both teams in the game, right? Where they're running, staying on the ground, opening things up in the passing game. I think where the scoring is going to be limited is in the red zone. These teams are going to maybe clamp down when it's a little bit closer there. The Chiefs can do that. We know with some of the stuff they have in their secondary and the way they can approach it with the pass rush. Same thing with the Ravens up front. So I think they'll contain a little bit each other in the red zone. So I actually have it as 30-27. Now, I'll go ahead and reveal who I'm picking, and you can say that. I do like the Chiefs in this game. I just look at all the pros for the Ravens. They're there, but the Chiefs are pretty equal on a lot of levels. And I look at, okay, if it's going to be a close game, comes down to the last possession, where do I go? I think I have to go with Patrick Mahomes. So that's my logic. It's probably just kind of intangible thinking here. But if it's a close game, all things considered, I'm going to go with the quarterback I trust most in these situations.
What's funny is I think it's going to be a close game and on the final drive, right? But I'm with you. I think they're going to clamp down in the red zone. I have it being really a lot of field goals made, especially on the Ravens side. I think we'll get into that with the PrizePicks, but I think Justin Tucker is going to be kicking a lot of field goals in this game. And I think at the end of the game, the Chiefs are going to have a chance on the final drive. They're going to need a touchdown on that drive, and Mahomes is going to throw an interception. That's why I have their season ending 22-17. That is my prediction.
All right. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I think this kind of tells you that it's going to be pretty tight. We don't know exactly who's going to win. We know whoever has the ball last may or may not win, right? I have Patrick Mahomes coming through with that field goal drive. You do not, nor with the touchdown. So we'll see. But the biggest thing we're looking for in fantasy is scoring from the guys we want to score in this one. So we'll look at that in our next two segments with our PrizePicks picks and our FanDuel DFS choices here for the single game. But before we do that, we got to hear from another one of our great sponsors. All right. It is the championship weekend. That means passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die live at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Michelle, let's get into the prize picks of the week. So how we're doing a little bit differently this week, we're actually going to go individually. So we'll have a lot more than we usually do here because we're going to do 4 from this game each. We'll have 4 from the NFC game. Lions 49ers there for you tomorrow. We'll do a lot of the same stuff we're doing here there. So let's start, Michelle. Let's go with your number one favorite prize picks of the week for the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I just talked about, I think the Ravens are going to be kicking a lot of field goals. I think the Chiefs defense is going to shut them down a bit. They're going to be able to move the ball, but I think once they get closer to the goal line, near just actually over the 50-yard line, I think they're going to start to clamp down. Justin Tucker, we know he can just hit 60-yarders, right, in his sleep. But I'm giving him more than 7.5 kicking points. So every time he kicks an extra point, that's a point. And then every time he kicks a field goal, that's 3 points. So he needs to add up to 7.5 points. He's hit this in 7 of the last 8 weeks pretty easily. Last week had 10 points there. But again, I see a lot of field goals in this game. So I'm going with Justin Tucker more than 7.5. And then Travis Kelce, I've been leaning on him the last couple of weeks. I'm going to keep leaning on him. So I'm going to keep taking his more than 62.5 receiving yards. Over his 2 playoff games, 71 and 75. And then he had 2 touchdowns last week as well. Once they got into the important games, they go back to their number one guy. And this is not going to be an easy matchup, but if Travis Kelce is not heavily involved, then I don't think the Chiefs have a very good chance of winning. Travis Kelce needs to step up, have a big game, and I think he has his 70 receiving yards again. And then my last 2 are the same guy, but one's a regular one and one's a demon one. So I'm going with Isaiah Pacheco, more than 64.5 rushing yards. That's just a regular pick there. But he's been getting the carries, right? They've been really leaning on him over since week 11. He's been averaging 85 rushing yards per game, and he only needs 65. But the last 3 games, 130, 89, 97, like well over this. And you brought up, like, the Ravens, you can run on them. That's one of their weaknesses. So they're going to have to lean on that run. And they did hold the Texans. The Ravens held the Texans to not very many rushing yards, but that's Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. The 3 games prior to the playoffs, they allowed Najee 112, Devin A-Chain 107, Christian McCaffrey 103. In week 14, they allowed Kyron Williams 114. Like, you can run on them. So I really like the Isaiah Pacheco more than 64.5. And then to go with my demon pick, I'm saying more than 0.5 rush plus receiving touchdowns. That's a demon pick, which I'm really surprised about because he's had a touchdown in each of the last 6 games. And Mahomes, what's nice about Pacheco is you don't have to worry about his quarterback stealing rushing touchdowns. Mahomes just isn't scoring rushing touchdowns this year, but also when they get near the goal line, that's not the play call they go to. They don't go to Mahomes, sneaking into the end zone. They go to Pacheco or some other dump off, a short pass. But Pacheco's going to get that rush attempt to get in. So I really like that for him as well.
Yeah, that's a really good call. And I'll start with Isaiah Pacheco. Let's just build on it, right? I'm going to go more demon with Isaiah Pacheco. So I like where you're going with the 64.5 rushing yards. I like where you're going with a touchdown. I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to get the demon as well. He just needs 25 more rushing yards at that. 89.5 is the number. I mean, look at his volume. He had 24 carries in the win over Miami. I know they had a positive game script and they pulled away, but he was loaded last week as well. And he is looking great. I mean, he's just reeling off chunk runs. I love how they're pulling the offensive linemen, the athletic guys, Creed Humphrey leading the way. He's awesome. So I think Creed Humphrey could be a big reason why the Chiefs win this game. So 89.5. So basically we're saying 100 and a score should have happened for Isaiah Pacheco in this game. So, and we'll see if we have him in our FanDuel lineups as well. So I'm going to go there so that you should feel better about that. Now, I will also do my other parallel to yours, which is Harrison Butker. His number's at 6.5. Now, if I had the score 30 to 27, I'm not great at math, but that would suggest that he has 3 field goals, right? So that tells me it's 9 points at least, even if they're short. That's 6.5. Okay. So I think, Michelle, I'm going to confirm that 9 is more than 6.5. So I'm going to say I got to correlate these things. I have to correlate these things. So that's how I look at it. So Harrison Butker, I'm going to take it. I get 1 less point, Michelle. You have to get 1 whole extra point out of Justin Tucker to hit yours. So I'm going to take the 6.5. And now I also like a guy to score. It's Gus Edwards. I mean, he's been the guy that scored quite a bit here. He had 13 touchdowns in the regular season. They're going to feed him the ball when it's not Lamar Jackson running in. It's going to be him. So it's going to be competition, but I don't necessarily see if they're near the goal line to force in Lamar. The Gus Edwards have been so proficient at scoring. So I like it. 0.5 more rushing TDs. He'll do that. Now, my last guy, I have to have a quarterback rushing in this one. And Patrick Mahomes, look, he had one really key scramble against the Bills, but it kind of didn't go as much, right? To that he didn't have many more opportunities. But I think this game, if you look at it, the Chiefs can run on this team with their quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. These are some of the quarterbacks that went over 40 rushing yards against the Ravens. So, look, they're going to be aggressive with the pass rush. Mahomes, we know he's going to be flushed out. He's going to scramble around, try to create something. So when he's in trouble on the edge, he's going to take off and run. And I can see him do this about 2 or 3 times in the game. And that's where I think he's going to hit this. So it's 26.5. Now, the demon is a little too rich. It's near 40, I think. No, 26.5 is right there with Patrick Mahomes. So that's where I'm going. Now, I will just have one take on your Travis Kelce pick here. I'll just, if people are watching, I'll just say, this is all I'm going to say for them. This is the thing I got. So,
what does it say?
Taylor's boyfriend. Go Taylor's boyfriend. That's all
Nice.
it says. So that's for you. That's just for you to get that number. But yeah, I do like Travis Kelce, your pick. So I sign off on all your picks, and I sign off on mine as well.
Yeah, Gus Edwards, he didn't get the touchdown last week, but he did get the carry near the goal line. So, like, with Dalvin Cook there, he did steal some of the carries, but he wasn't stealing the goal line work, which was nice. Yeah. Edwards didn't end up getting in, but I do expect him to still stick with that goal line work. And that's actually a demon pick if you go with the more 0.5, more than rush plus receiving touchdowns for Gus Edwards. So make sure to hit that one. But also, we didn't even mention, if you're doing any of these, make sure to hit that. We'll talk about Christian McCaffrey tomorrow, but they have the special for him. He only needs 1 rushing yard to hit his projection. So make sure you add him to your favorite picks, right? If you have one that you feel really confident about, put Christian McCaffrey in that one for sure. We're going to get into our favorite we're going to get into our FanDuel lineups for the AFC Championship game. It's hard because it's one single game, and trying to fit in the players you want that are very pricey because it's a singular game, it got a little tricky. So we'll get into that in just a moment after we hear from our sponsor, FanDuel. The NFL season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is very easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet. Like, you can find bets in the new Explore tab, makes it super easy to find any bets that you're searching for, or make a parlay in the parlay hubs, which is the best way to find popular parlays. All you have to do to get started is to visit FanDuel.com and use promo code LOCKEDON to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Vinny, I will say I'm nervous to say my captain because when you do a single game, you have to pick a captain and you get 1.5 times the points, but you have to also pay 1.5 times their cost. So it's very hard to get in a quarterback if you want any other viable players in your lineup, right? So who did you go with your captain? I'll let you go first.
Well, we've talked about him a lot in this episode, and we think based on our picks, we like him to have 100 yards and a score. So I went with Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's the key to the Chiefs winning. He was the guy I liked the most. Paying $14,000 for him. So yeah, it allowed me to do some other things with my lineup. So I'm going for it. I think touchdowns are going to be key this week. Whoever can score, I think of these players is going to be big. So I went to Isaiah Pacheco and paid a little up for him for the 1.5 points.
Yeah, I love the Pacheco. I didn't get him in. I tried. I couldn't get him in. So I went, and this is a ballsy one and probably not the smartest way to go. I went with Justin Tucker, and it's because I think he's going to make 5 field goals in this game. Now, obviously, if they're short ones, it's not going to be great for me. But if there are a bunch of long ones, he could put up a really nice performance, and I get 1.5 times the amount. The reason I did that is because I wanted both Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes in my lineup. I wanted both quarterbacks, and I got them both there.
Okay.
So I went for my next 2. I went with Lamar and Patrick Mahomes.
Wow. Okay. Well, now I feel bad about my lineup because I couldn't get both in, but I did get one in. I went with Lamar Jackson in this one because of the rushing yards. And if I think the Chiefs are going to win, I would think they might run a little bit more and be ahead. So that's why I went with Lamar Jackson. That he'll throw, he'll run, whatever. He has an easier path to putting up points, I think, than Patrick Mahomes, right? So that's why I went with Lamar Jackson. I wish I had both quarterbacks, but look, if they both go off, then you're in really good shape in this one. But I'm feeling Lamar Jackson quite a bit. So he's my next guy. And then because you said you had Justin Tucker, guess who I had? Harrison Butker. He's in the lineup. So he's one of my other guys. That leaves 2 in our lineups.
Yeah. So the other 2, I went with Zay Flowers. I went with him because he can make those big splash plays, right? And I think the Chiefs secondary is tough, and I could see Odell and Bateman just being completely locked down, right? Those are the type of players that I think are going to struggle. But Zay Flowers used differently. I do think he can get those chunk plays. So I went with him. And then again, even with going with Justin Tucker as my captain, but because I went with both quarterbacks, I had very little money left. I went with Dalvin Cook again. Now, he did get carries last week, not efficient on them, but brand new to the team. He got 8 carries. Every time he was on the field, I think he touched the ball. So maybe his increase goes up. Maybe I'm wrong about Gus Edwards getting the goal line carries, right? Maybe Dalvin Cook sneaks in one. But I had to fit in some. There was very little guys that were less expensive that are going to see any touches. So at least I know he's going to get touches. I went with him as my last guy.
Okay, I went with Gus Edwards. Now, I guess it's kind of weird because I went with Jackson Edwards, but I think I'm covered, on the touchdowns here for the Ravens for the most part. So that's what I wanted to do, whatever the scoring they get. But then I also made an interesting move because I have the Chiefs defense. I think they're what I could afford. So I think Jackson can put up some numbers, but I also think the Chiefs can make some big plays against him. So maybe a few sacks, a turnover. I think I just picked the defense that I think is going to be on the winning side in this one. So wanted to also correlate them with Pacheco in this one. So look, it's a little all over the place. I get it, but this is a tough. These slates are always super tough for me. Like I can't do well when I look and I don't have enough money to put in anybody, right? I just want to put in the long snapper, and there's not even enough money for him to get a 0 point. Like I can't afford these. I tried with the 2 quarterbacks, so unfortunately you can't play. I think you can do that a little bit easier in other formats, but here you legitimately have to have 5 legitimate kind of players in this game to have a shot. So that's what I did, and we'll see how it plays out. I just went with someone I thought could have the big game in Pacheco, and I agree with you. Tucker could go nuts with the field goals, and I think the key thing is to pivot away from the quarterback. Someone's going to captain the quarterbacks or get them at 1.5 in a lot of places. So you want to differentiate a little bit, and I think that is how we kind of approach both of these rosters.
Yeah, and if you captain these, especially Lamar, because he's the most expensive at $17,000 on FanDuel. If you captain him, you're not going to have you're going to have to play
Yeah.
like nobody's elsewhere. And it's going to be basically, if Lamar has like a 50-point game, then maybe you have a good shot, but he's going to have to go absolutely berserk in that situation. So I wanted them both. That's why I went with Tucker. So you went with both of the starting running backs, which I'm jealous of. I got in both of the starting quarterbacks, and at least you got in one starting quarterback. I got in none of the starting running backs. So different approaches here, but I'm excited to see how it works out. And if Justin Tucker goes berserk and you had him as a captain, you're welcome, folks.
Yeah, just watch out for it. I mean, it could be a lot of kicking in this game. We don't want that necessarily, but for our purposes, we do. So let's it may not be as exciting for all of you rooting for this, but look, these guys are money kickers for a reason, and it doesn't get any better than this. I think these are the two best kickers in the NFL. So for that, whatever that's worth, that's what we're investing in this week. Now, we'll do the same. We'll break down the Lions 49ers NFC Championship game. We'll do some prize picks. We'll do some FanDuel, really get in depth with that. We'll have a lot of fun. Christian McCaffrey will give you any updates we have on Deebo Samuel, whether he's going to go in the game. So all kinds of stuff we need to look at for that game. For our look at the Chiefs-Ravens and our reaction to the Jim Harbaugh hiring with the Chargers, this has been Locked On Fantasy Football.
I'm Michelle Magdziuk.
Bye, y'all.